At Fort Kavanaugh, folks called her the quiet one in the hangar. No one expected the name Lucia Vargas to appear on the Veterans Day flight list. She moved like clockwork before sunrise and without fuss, as if the concrete and steel remembered her better than the people did. The wind came in early from the west that morning, dragging dust across the runway and pulling a low whistle through the broken weather strip of the simulator hangar. Lou had already finished her second coffee by the time most of the younger cadets stirred. Her table at La Paloma Diner had been the same for years, back corner next to the faded photo of Bill in uniform taken in Da Nang, 1971. "You never switch it up, do you?" Bill asked as he topped off her mug. The way he moved behind the counter hadn't changed since Nixon was president. "Sourdough's good for the soul," Lou said. She didn't look up, just tapped the corner of her toast in black coffee and stared out the window at the base beyond. A flag flapped in the distance, half tangled on the pole. "You see the list yet?" Bill asked, wiping down the counter with the same slow care he used on his war medals. His left hand trembled a little, but he steadied it without comment. "I heard a few names," Lou said. Bill squinted. "You're on it, right?" Lou smiled just barely. Stranger things have happened. Before leaving, she walked past the glass display in the diner's corner. She straightened the dusty model of the AH-64 Apache, her thumb lingering on the tiny nameplate bolted just beneath the cockpit, Vargas L. Most folks assumed it was someone else. She never corrected them. The model had been a gift from a crew chief decades ago, a quiet thank you for a flight that hadn't made the records, but had brought 3 people home. By the time she reached the hangar, the sun had burned the morning chill off the pavement, but inside the simulator bay, it stayed cool. One of the ducts still worked humming low overhead. Lou checked the sim consoles before the techs came in, running her fingers along each toggle switch and pressure dial, like a pianist reacquainting with an old song. Every flick of her hand was practiced rhythmic. The consoles responded like they knew her touch. She paused to retape a fraying cable near the foot pedal station, humming under her breath. Nothing military, just a tune her brother used to whistle when adjusting avionics on hot days. The kind of detail no one taught you, but somehow mattered more than protocol. Beyond the partition wall, voices started to rise. Cadets gathered in the briefing room, fresh, loud, and green as spring onions in desert soil. The chairs scraped. Someone cracked a joke. "Who the hell is L. Vargas anyway?" a young male voice barked. "Ghost name," Reese said. "She probably thinks Apache is just a brand of boots." A few others snorted laughter. One even mimicked the creak of a walker. Lou unplugged a simulator console, checked its diagnostic screen, and recalibrated the gyroscope manually. The system buzzed gently beneath her hand. Machines didn't care who you were, what you wore, or what people thought of your age. They only asked if you could fly. Just before noon, the cadets filed into the lecture room. Captain Blake stood at the front like a courthouse bailiff. He wore his authority like a polished pin, visible and sharp. "Veterans Day assignments," he said, flicking the clipboard with his finger. "Listen up." The room settled. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Lou stood at the side next to the utility closet, technically not required but present by routine. Blake read the names with a cadence honed by years of repetition. Then came a pause. "Vargas." He squinted as if unsure it was even real, then chuckled. A few cadets turned. Murmurs. Flying back up, Blake smirked. "You. That's rich." Reese leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying it. From where she stood, Lou didn't blink. She folded her arms across the front of her patched bomber jacket, the threads near the shoulder unraveling gently where the rescue patch had nearly come off. "Stranger things have happened," she said, her voice calm, level. and heard by all. The silence that followed was almost sacred. Captain Blake lowered his clipboard. "That'll be all. Dismissed." Cadets shuffled up from their chairs, their chatter muted this time. Some stole glances at Lou as they passed. Reese walked by, closest silent, but the smirk still clung to his lips like something sour. Lou lingered until the room emptied. Then she stepped toward the back exit, each bootfall echoing against tile and metal. That evening, in her modest apartment a few blocks from the base, Lou pulled down a cardboard box from the top of a closet. Inside, an old army green duffel, a cracked leather-bound logbook with yellowed pages, a metal case without the metal, and a folded rescue patch in a sealed Ziploc bag. She opened the bag carefully. The patch read, "That others may live." Its threads were loose edges curled from years of washing and use. She pressed her thumb gently into the fabric and closed her eyes, the weight of old airfields and younger hands returning like the smell of jet fuel at dawn. In the corner of her apartment, beneath the window facing the airfield, sat a small wooden table with nothing but a cup of lukewarm coffee and a photograph, 3 people in flight suits, smiling in grainy color. She didn't look at it long. She turned instead to her old manual, gently flipping through to the dog-eared section on rotor drift in high crosswinds. Someone had underlined a phrase in red pen years ago. Correction comes not from force but timing. Major Kim, watching from the side, makes a note on her clipboard and raises an eyebrow toward Lou's name. At 0600, when even the wind was still asleep, one simulator lit up early, unauthorized, unnoticed, but not unremarkable. The fluorescent lights overhead still flickered sluggishly, as if reluctant to start the day. Pale desert light spilled through the slatted windows of the simulator hangar, casting long bands across the polished floor. It was the hour when base life hadn't quite begun, when the air still smelled faintly of last night's oil, and the walls echoed back the softest sound. Lucia Vargas stepped quietly through the side door, her keys jingling once before she cupped them in her palm. The patch on her jacket sleeve had been restitched since yesterday. It didn't sit flat anymore, but it held. Her boots, worn but shined, made the kind of noise that didn't interrupt silence. It folded into it. She didn't need to check if anyone was watching. She knew they weren't. The simulator stations sat like sleeping giants, curved glass panels and control rigs arranged in a neat row. Lou walked past each one until she reached number 4, the same one she always maintained but had never flown in public. She opened the side panel beneath the throttle, revealing a narrow cluster of wires. Her fingers moved with the ease of memory. A red wire. A ground tap. One bridge across the primary relay. She adjusted the configuration until it matched what her hands had learned in 2005, a time when emergencies didn't wait for approval and you either adapted or went down. The simulator whirred softly to life. She climbed in, ducking under the glass dome, settling into the seat like it still remembered her. The cracked rubber grips met her hands, as if greeting an old friend. She pulled the headset over her ears and let out a slow breath. The test sequence began. There were no greetings, no instructors, no cadets watching with clipboard bravado, just a programmed Apache, and Lou locked in a challenge she had designed for herself, though tail rotor, mid-air drift, simulated mountain crosswinds, and a forced landing into unstable terrain. She didn't flinch when the warning lights blinked. She anticipated the tail swing, countered with left cyclic pressure, pulsed the collective in half-second intervals. The machine fought back, but only out of habit. Lou had trained for this configuration hundreds of times in sandstorms, in ghost towns in memory. Her hands moved not with speed, but with certainty. When the Apache drifted sideways, she shifted weight with a light pedal touch, guiding the descent in a slow, controlled drop. 30 seconds later, she landed within the marked zone bounce and recovery. A hard landing, but clean. She exhaled as the system ended the simulation. Unbeknownst to her, a second figure had entered the bay. Major Donna Kim stood just past the entry threshold, coffee cup in hand, eyes focused. She had arrived early, expecting to review maintenance reports, but the lit simulator had drawn her attention. She said nothing, just watched. Inside the cockpit, Lu removed her headset and flipped switches with her left hand, humming softly to herself. It was a tune Kim couldn't place, low, rhythmic, steady. Not cheerful, but not sad either. Lu logged out, shutting down the system with deliberate care, like she was tucking it in for sleep. Then she opened the side panel again and rewired the simulator back to default. Her movements didn't waver. She didn't know she had been seen. As Lu exited toward the back hallway, Kim stepped to the simulator and tapped the console. She pulled up the last flight's telemetry. Flight 0004 Operator ID MROD. Configuration Custom. She ran the playback: tail rotor failure. High wind drift. Recovery time 7.2 seconds. Final landing deviation 1.3 meters. Margin for error 0.4. She watched it twice. This wasn't luck, Kim whispered the words slipping out before she noticed they had formed. The system chimed and asked whether to archive or delete the log. Kim selected archive and pressed print. The flight data slid out of the small tray with a quiet hiss. She folded it in half, slipped it into her coat pocket. Outside the hangar, the sun had begun to lift higher, turning the desert sky into a powder blue canvas. Cadets would be arriving soon. Down the corridor, Cadet Marisol Chen walked past the open tool cabinet. She paused when she saw Lu kneeling beside the backup simulator cable tray, tightening bolts and replacing a worn grip with new rubber. Lu's motions were exact, unhurried. Chen didn't speak, but she watched, absorbing every detail. The machines didn't buzz as much around Lu. They hummed, responded, obeyed. Even from the hallway, Chen felt it. Whatever she was seeing was something different from the Academy manual. Lu looked up once, not startled, just noting her presence. Chen gave a small nod. Lu returned it before turning back to the final screw, adjusting it by feel rather than gauge. Inside her office, Kim placed the telemetry printout on her desk and pulled up the personnel system. She typed the name slowly: Vargas Lucia. Vet file verification. As the system searched, she reached for her tablet. It pinged. A digital notification flashed on screen. General Langford requests vet verification for L. Vargas. Blake laughed in front of the cadets. I thought you just ran the mop squad. The briefing room filled with forced chuckles. Blake's voice, sharp as a boot snap, bounced off the dry walls with too much authority for the hour. Outside, the wind played tug-of-war with the row of flags posted along the perimeter fence. They flapped against the poles like warning signs trying to be heard. Lu sat in the third row, same place she always chose, left side, close to the side door, easy exit. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, thumbs crossed. Her bomber jacket looked even older under the fluorescent lights, its patch fluttering loose at one edge like it was tired of clinging. Blake strutted at the front, clipboard in one hand, coffee in the other. The morning briefing was meant to be routine, but Veterans Day prep had given it a layer of stagecraft he relished too much. All right, we've got dignitaries visiting this week, so let's keep the base from looking like a scrapyard, he barked. Flight demos still on schedule. Cadet Reese, you're Delta 2. Reese nodded, grinning. Let's hope the air behaves. More chuckles. Blake flipped the page. And our backup. L. Vargas. He looked up, eyes skimming the rows until they landed on her. UA beat. I thought you just ran the mop squad. This time the laughter was real. Reese let out a half snort. Someone whispered something about dust and relics. Lou didn't move. Her expression didn't change. She stared forward like she was reading something on the blank wall behind Blake. "I don't make the lists," Blake added, smirking. "Some forms fill themselves." Lou said nothing. From the back of the room, Major Dana Kim's tablet vibrated gently. She lifted it to eye level, scanned the message, and tapped once to enlarge it. Langford. By order, add Vargas to standby rotation. Effective immediately. Vet credentials verified. Kim didn't react, not visibly. She slid the device back into her coat and glanced once toward Lou. The woman didn't blink. Her silence had weight. It made the room's sound feel cheaper. As the cadets filed out, Reese passed Lou and whispered, "Just don't stall the engine, Granny." She didn't respond. Kim caught up with Blake near the hallway junction. "Captain," she said quietly, "I'd like to show you something." Blake followed her to the side office. She queued up the sim footage from earlier in the week, Lou's no-tail rotor recovery. Numbers, overlays, smooth corrections. No frills. Blake scoffed before it ended. "Great." She passed a test. At 6 a.m. in private. Once. Kim raised an eyebrow. "You know that config is Black Protocol. It's not part of the Academy's current modules. And yet somehow she pulled it off." "She didn't just pull it off," Kim said evenly. "She designed it." Blake leaned back. "Look, Dana, I get it. The underdog story. But these kids need consistency. Structure." Kim didn't argue. She just let the silence answer him. That afternoon, the base cafe posted a chalkboard out front, "Free coffee for all vets this week. 1 per badge, no questions." Someone had drawn little stick helicopters along the border in green chalk. Inside, Marisol Chen sat with a milk tea cooling beside her notebook open. She'd written lecture notes across the page, flight curve equations, emergency descent diagrams, and in the bottom corner, small but unmistakable Vargas. She hadn't intended to write it. It had just come out like a name surfacing before it could be stopped. In the hangar, technicians were running final diagnostics on the Apache units scheduled for display. Reese stood by his simulator, joking with another cadet, but paused when he saw Lou walk in. She was wearing a helmet. Not holding it, wearing it. Straps, fastened chin-snug visor flipped up just enough to show her eyes. Blake, who had just entered from the opposite end, halted. His clipboard dropped slightly from his side. No announcement, no fanfare. Just the quiet press of boots on concrete as Lou approached the row of choppers, ran a hand along the edge of Delta 6, and checked the maintenance tag herself. Blake opened his mouth, maybe to say something clever. Lou turned to him, calm as ever. "Still need a spare pilot." "Captain," the air was thin, the sky bright, and Captain Blake froze when the call came in. "Bird 2 is drifting." Over Fort Kavanaugh, the November sun was already sharp at 8:30, casting hard shadows over the tarmac. Veterans Day banners snapped in the breeze along the bleachers, where folding chairs creaked under the shifting weight of spectators bundled in windbreakers and caps. A local school band tuned their instruments, the brass whining slightly in the dry wind. On the tower deck, a camera drone hovered steady, its lens sweeping the sky in anticipation of the DoD livestream. Apache Bird 2 lifted off with textbook confidence. Its rotors carved arcs into the air, its sleek black body tilting north by northeast as Cadet Tyler Reese took her into formation. The crowd murmured with excitement, many pointing upward as 2 other Apaches followed, forming a diamond pattern above the base. From inside the control tower, Captain Blake stood behind the lead technician, arms folded, expression unreadable. He didn't say much after reading the final assignments. Lou had simply nodded and walked out to prep. 3 minutes in, a voice crackled through the comms. "Control, this is Bird 3. Bird 2's pattern is drifting." A murmur ran through the tower. Blake leaned in. "Repeat Bird 2's trailing left. Rotor wash variance rising." The telemetry confirmed it. Reese's Apache was pulling against formation, the tail rotor compensating erratically. The crowd didn't notice yet. But Blake did. "Give him room to recover," Blake said. "Do not engage." Inside her cockpit, Lou was already strapped in. Helmet secure. Her fingers hovered over the radio toggle. The simulator's memory flickered behind her eyelids. 2005. Config tail drift, asymmetric load, crosswind correction. Every tick of the altimeter on screen matched the ghost data in her muscle memory. She keyed the mic. "Control, this is Vargas. Request permission to engage support maneuver." The line went silent. Blake turned toward the technician, then toward Kim, who stood just behind him. He didn't speak. Kim did. Permission granted. Lou's Apache lifted off like a breath being taken. Her ascent was smooth, deliberate, not rushed. The crowd noticed this one. A murmur rippled through the bleachers. A second drone swung its lens toward her flight path. Bird 2 veered again, sharp this time. Reese's voice came through tight with stress. "Control, I'm getting lateral instability. Instruments aren't matching. Reduce thrust on port rotor." Lou said, her tone like a lullaby pressed into steel. "Compensate with right pedal shallow pitch. I'm coming in on your 6. Reese stammered. What do it now, cadet? Trust me." Blake watched the screens. 2 choppers in perfect diagonal sync. Lou moved behind Reese's Bird 2, matching his altitude, feeding air stability through her rotor wash, using the override technique she'd built and tested long before these kids were issued flight suits. "Bring your nose to 28 degrees, she said. "I'll hold your wash." Reese complied. His Apache steadied, still wobbling but no longer swinging. The formation regained its lines just as the band below began the national anthem. The rotors pulsed overhead in sync with the music's first note. In the crowd, Marisol Chen clutched her sketchpad, wide eyes fixed on the sky. A rough outline of an Apache was already inked across the page. Next to it, in shaky but certain handwriting, she scribbled, "Lou Vargas equals precision." The landing zone was marked with 4 orange panels, temporary paint still fresh on the far tarmac. Lou circled once, gave Reese space to descend. He touched down hard but safe. Dust curled around the skids. She came in behind him. Not a flare. Not a dramatic arc. Just a gentle combat-grade touchdown within 3 feet of the designated mark. The bleachers were dead silent. Inside the tower, Blake's mouth had opened slightly. He didn't close it. General Langford's voice cut through the tower speakers. "Get Vargas to debrief and prep the press packet. She saved your pilot, stabilized a $35 million aircraft, and landed like it was routine. Now let's talk about who you overlooked." The blinds were drawn halfway in the base conference room, letting in slants of golden afternoon that cut across the long table like spotlight beams. Outside, the last Veterans Day posters fluttered along the corridor windows, their corners curled from sun and wind. Someone had left a program folded neatly at the center of the table, the print faded but still legible, honoring all who served. Lou sat quietly at the far end, not in uniform, just her usual bomber jacket, though the patch was no longer fraying loosely. It had been restitched clean, centered just above her heart. She hadn't said a word since entering the room. Captain Blake looked like he hadn't slept. His posture was stiff, eyes flicking toward every sound, footsteps in the hall, the tick of the wall clock, the faint metallic clatter of blinds shifting in the breeze. Major Kim sat 2 chairs down from him, composed tablet resting face down before her. General Langford stood near the projection monitor, sleeves rolled precisely once, a manila folder in hand. Her voice had the clarity of someone accustomed to both courtroom and cockpit. Lucia Vargas, she said, opening the folder, logged 620 combat support flight hours, including 200 in hostile airspace. Authored the original stabilization override protocol used yesterday. That protocol was classified shelved and then quietly integrated under a different name. Today, it saved your pilot. She turned to Blake. Would you like to explain why her record was missing from your system? Blake straightened. Ma'am, that would appear to be an administrative oversight. Possibly a misfile during her transition out of what Langford asked, her tone even. Service, she never left the work. You left her off the map. Kim leaned forward. Sir, with respect, the error wasn't clerical. It was cultural. We ignored experience because it didn't look like ours. A quiet settled over the room, heavy as cement. The door creaked open. Bill stepped in, hat in hand, envelope tucked under one arm. He walked with the kind of quiet that didn't need permission. Blake's eyes flicked toward him, confused. Miss Vargas, Bill said, setting the envelope beside her. Figured you might want this now. Lou opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph, grainy, sun-washed. 2 young pilots stood beside a weathered helicopter. One was her younger in full gear. The other, smiling wide, was her brother. His arm slung around her shoulder, his patch identical to hers. She nodded once and tucked it gently beside the folder Langford had left open. Langford turned to the board. Effective today, we reinstate Ms. Vargas with honorary flight rank. She will serve as technical advisor and training supervisor for rotorcraft emergencies. No one objected. Langford took a final step toward Blake. Her voice didn't rise. You're relieved from command. Effective immediately. Blake didn't speak. He didn't argue. For once, there was nothing to say. Lou stood folding the rescue patch on her jacket sleeve carefully, fingers smoothing the edges until the Velcro settled. It didn't sag anymore. She didn't look triumphant, just complete. As the room emptied, the last slant of sunlight crossed the floorboards like a soft runway. Outside by the row of benches near the field, Cadet Marisol Chen stood at attention, her sketchpad tucked under one arm. Ma'am, she said, chin lifted. Requesting instruction. Your name's on the wall now, Bill says. About damn time. The hangar was nearly empty except for the hum of the overhead fluorescence and the soft, faraway thump of fireworks beginning down by the parade field. Outside, children's laughter floated past the open doors, carried on cool air laced with smoke and melted chocolate. The echoes of celebration felt distant, like something happening in a story Lou had once read, then quietly set aside. Inside, it was quiet. Not solemn, just still. Lou stood beside Cadet Marisol Chen, both of them facing the grounded Apache simulator. The same bay where Lou used to calibrate in silence years of skill, tucked behind folded hands and deflected glances. The bronze plaque above the entrance caught the light just enough to gleam Instructor L. Vargas. Below it, in etched script, the sky doesn't care where you come from, only how you fly. Marisol shifted on her feet, nerves bundled into every gesture. Start from the checklist, Lou said gently. Chen fumbled slightly, flipping open the laminated starter card. Right. Pre-power inspection, fuel flow simulation, rotor brake, engaged. Lou nodded, arms folded loosely, watching, not judging. Just there. You don't have to be fast, she said. Just exact. Let the machine know you're listening. Marisol clicked through the toggles one by one. Her fingers trembled but hit the marks. "I watched you all week," she said quietly. "I just didn't know how to ask." Lu raised an eyebrow. "How to ask what?" "How to learn from someone like you," Chen replied. "Someone who's already survived it all." Lu didn't answer immediately. She walked slowly toward the cockpit's side rail, placing one hand on the edge. The same metal she had touched hundreds of times when no one was looking. When people called her names like the janitor or the ghost tech, "There's pressure," she said. "When you've already been dismissed once. You think if you stay small enough, quiet enough, maybe you'll slip through before they notice you don't belong in their picture." "But you do belong," Chen said. Lu gave a slow nod. "Eventually. But no one hands you that truth. You carry it until someone else sees it for themselves." The simulator whirred faintly as the system ran its pre-flight scan. Lights flickered green. Lu reached up and unfastened the patch from her jacket. That others may live, the stitching still knew from where she'd secured it after the reinstatement. She held it for a long moment, thumb brushing the edge, then extended it toward Chen. "Keep it close," she said. "You'll know when." Marisol didn't move right away. Then she took the patch with both hands, eyes wide. Her fingers folded around it like it might dissolve if held too tight. "Are you sure?" Lu offered a small smile. "It's not for the wall. It's for the ones still learning how to lift off." Outside, another firework bloomed red and soft. The reflection lit the hangar floor for half a second before fading again. Chen climbed into the seat, powered on the simulator. Her shoulders squared. Lu stood behind her, not overbearing, not instructing. Just present. When the rotors began to hum and the console glowed to life, Lu nodded once. "You'll do fine." From the control tower above, a new status line blinked to life on the panel. "Instructor Vargas session, assigned Cadet M. Chen." Lu didn't smile, but something in her shoulders softened. She turned, walking toward the far end of the bay where the old flight log still rested in the drawer no one else opened. Behind her, the simulator pulsed steady. Cadet Chen, focused, guided, adjusting trim and yaw like she'd done it in a dream. Outside, the fireworks cracked again. No loud finale, just soft bursts stitched through the sky. Like dignity, like recognition, like flight. Under the quiet hum of the hangar lights, something far more enduring than metal or protocol took flight. It wasn't just a cadet learning to fly. It was a legacy passed hand to hand, stitched through time and silence. When we choose to look past appearances and listen closely, we often find quiet excellence standing right beside us. Kindness, especially when unannounced, has a way of rewriting the stories others tried to bury. So perhaps tonight, as the sky blooms with soft fireworks and quiet victories, take a moment to ask, who have we overlooked that was ready all along?